Luke had a car accident and lost his memory. He forgot that we were already married. When I visited him at the hospital, he was cold and distant. Holding back my sorrow, I walked out of the room, only to hear him excitedly exclaim, "Oh no, I've fallen in love. It was love at first sight with that girl just now. I can't even imagine how happy I'd be if she were my wife." And me, who was already his wife? Luke was in a car accident. When I heard the news, it felt like falling into an ice pit. I rushed to the hospital and pushed open the door to his room. He was chatting with his buddy Carlos. Seeing that he was mostly fine, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I quickly walked over to his side, still shaken, my eyes turning slightly red. Luke looked up at me, clearly confused. Fighting back tears, I said, "How could you be so careless?" Hearing that, he seemed even more bewildered and glanced at Carlos for help. I frowned and said, "Don't even think about making Carlos take the blame." Luke turned his head back to me and hesitantly asked, "Do you know me?" Now it was my turn to be dumbfounded. Regaining my senses, I got a little angry. "Luke, you're seriously joking with me right now?" As I spoke, I reached out to grab his shirt. He flinched like he was being harassed and dodged my hand. When Luke saw me crying, a flash of panic crossed his face. He instinctively reached out to wipe my tears but froze midway and pulled his hand back. I wiped my own tears and looked over at Carlos, who met my gaze and explained, "The doctor said there's still some bleeding in his brain. He might forget certain things." This wasn't just forgetting certain things, he had completely forgotten me. The way he looked at me was full of unfamiliarity. My heart ached, and I practically fled in panic. After leaving the room, I leaned against the door to calm myself. Just as I was about to leave, I heard Luke's excited voice from inside. "Oh no, I've fallen in love. It was love at first sight with that girl just now. I can't even imagine how happy I'd be if she were my wife." Me, already his wife, stood there baffled. All my sadness vanished instantly. Carlos froze for a few seconds upon hearing that, then barely held back his laughter and said, "You want to chase her? Can't I? Do you even know her?" Carlos had no intention of telling him the truth, speaking with a teasing tone. "I know her, and so do you." "Really?" Luke got even more excited and raised his voice. "No wonder she rushed over right after my accident. Are we close?" "You two? It's complicated." "How complicated?" "You live together." Luke looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Live together? As the other person involved, I was speechless. Carlos was clearly taking advantage of Luke's amnesia to mess with him. Still doubting his life, Luke asked, "Why would I live with her? Am I forcing her or something?" Carlos couldn't hold back his laughter anymore. Yep, definitely a true friend. Back then, Luke had fallen for me first. But for some reason, he didn't pursue me openly. Instead, he secretly baited me, and I fell for it. Honestly, with his 8-pack abs, V-shaped waist, and God-tier looks, who wouldn't? Thinking of that, I abandoned the idea of going in to tell him the truth. What goes around comes around. It was his turn to chase me properly this time, and he better confess first. The doctor told me Luke's condition wasn't too serious. A few months of rest should do the trick. After leaving the doctor's office, I went straight home, packed away all our wedding photos, moved all my stuff from the master bedroom into the guest room, made sure there were no traces left, and then headed back to the hospital. The next time Luke saw me, his cold demeanor was gone. In a deliberately low voice, he asked, "I heard we're living together?" Carlos, standing next to him, was practically dying, trying not to laugh. I held back my own laughter and replied with a straight face, "Technically speaking, it's a shared rental." "A shared rental?" Luke was completely incredulous. "Me and you?" "Yes. You lost all your savings after a failed investment and had no income left. The only thing you had was a house with a mortgage you're still paying off. So you had to find a roommate to cover the bills." I wasn't lying. That was exactly the excuse Luke made up back then just to live with me. And I actually bought it. Luke paused for a few seconds and looked at Carlos in disbelief. Carlos quickly wiped the smile off his face, patted Luke on the shoulder, and sighed, "Bro, that's exactly how it is. You're pretty broke right now. I even had to lend you money last month to cover your mortgage." This guy Carlos could lie without missing a beat. I'm broke? Luke closed his eyes, looking utterly devastated. I could understand. After all, who wouldn't freak out if they suddenly lost 3 years of memories and went from rich second gen to broke overnight? He looked at me awkwardly and asked, "So you're saying I'm living off you now?" He looked so cute right then. If it weren't for the fact I was still playing along, I would have kissed him on the spot. I pushed down the urge and answered as distantly as I could. I wouldn't put it that way. We're just landlord and tenant. Maybe because our relationship sounded too simple, Luke seemed a bit disappointed. Carlos and I exchanged a glance. I instantly understood his intent. This was getting fun, and he wanted to keep it going. Pretending not to know me well, Carlos spoke as politely as possible. "Miss Jennifer, since Luke had an accident and isn't very mobile, would you mind taking care of him for a month or two? Just making sure he gets fed. We can count it toward your rent." Luke's eyes lit up the moment he heard that. His expression practically said, "Why didn't I think of that? That's my bro." I didn't respond right away and appeared a bit hesitant. Luke looked up at me with puppy eyes and cautiously asked, "Is that okay?" Tsk. It was that innocent, harmless face that hooked me back then. And after all these years, he was still using the same trick. I gave him a smile. All right then. After a few days in the hospital, Luke was discharged and came home. To make the whole act more convincing, I moved into the guest room and secretly changed my contact name in his phone. But honestly, habits are a scary thing. Without Luke holding me as I slept, I had a rare bout of insomnia. Scrolling through my phone only made me more awake and wired. That's when I stumbled upon a post on Jihu and saw a familiar account. It was Luke's. I knew his account. He usually used it to answer professional questions. But half an hour ago, he posted something completely out of character. "I've fallen for my roommate at first sight. How can I win her over?" The replies were all over the place. "You're already living together and still haven't made a move? Bro, you need more practice. If you've got money, spend it. Got the body? Seduce her. Know how to cook? Win her through her stomach. Got nothing? Keep dreaming. Just go for it, man. Be a real man and make a move." Maybe finding those suggestions unhelpful, Luke added more details. "Forgot to mention, I'm unemployed. She's my landlord and roommate. I live off her rent right now." The moment he posted that, the comment section went wild. "You better keep dreaming. Strong suspicion you're trying to scare the girl into raising rent. Bro, priority 1 is getting a job, not chasing girls." Knowing Luke, these comments probably only fueled his determination. That's how he reeled me in before with pure persistence. I decided to mess with him and left a comment. "You sure your roommate doesn't already have someone?" A few minutes after posting, I got a WeChat message from Luke. "Are you still awake?" "Yeah. I've got a question for you." "What's up? Do you have a boyfriend?" I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw that. No, even separated by a door, I could hear his excitement. Smirking, I kept typing, "But I'm married." Maybe I went too far, because 10 minutes passed without a reply. Did he give up already? I got up to go explain, but the moment I opened my door, I ran straight into him. He looked flustered and a bit wronged. After hesitating, he asked, unwilling to give up, You're really married?" I didn't answer, just sighed. Seeing me hesitate, his face fell completely, his eyes full of bitterness. My heart softened. I couldn't help Ide was staring at me with that perfectly handsome face, and it was impossible not to feel weak. "All right, I lied to you." His expression instantly lit up like the sun after rain. If he had a tail, it'd be wagging like crazy. I continued, feigning distress. "There are people who harass me, claiming they want to date me. So I say I'm married and living with my husband. If you mind, I can move out tomorrow." Lowering my head, I tried to look as pitiful as possible. "I don't mind. Of course I don't mind," Luke quickly reassured me, terrified I'd pack my bags. "Really?" I smiled sweetly at him, softening my voice. "Luke, you're so sweet." His ears instantly turned red, and he stammered, "I'm all right, not that great really." Realizing how awkward he sounded, he stiffly added, "I'll go back to my room and sleep now. Good night." "Good night." He practically stumbled back to his room. The first thing Luke did when he got back to his room was reply to my comment. She doesn't have anyone, and she even tells people I'm her husband. Even if it's fake, one day it'll be real. I've got plenty of strength and tricks up my sleeve. His bold declaration attracted a crowd of wingmen offering advice. One comment from someone named "My bro ain't too bright" caught Luke's eye. Bro, listen to Muse your best assets to flirt hard. Like what? You got abs? If you do, make sure you show them off, but subtly. That half-covered, half-revealed look is way more tempting. I strongly suspected this was the same guy who gave Luke advice 3 years ago. God knows the moment I saw his abs back then, I knew our roommate situation was about to take a turn. 3 years had passed, and I was no longer that desperate little glutton. Abs alone shouldn't be able to hook me again, except they did. Damn it. How can someone fall for the same abs twice? I watched Luke walk out of his room, deliberately casual but obviously posing, wrapped only in a towel. My face flushed against my will. What's wrong with me? After 3 years, I still wasn't tired of this view. I coughed awkwardly and turned away to hide my reaction, keeping a calm facade despite the storm inside. Maybe you should put on some clothes? Luke's still striking poses. Huh? I said seriously. The flu's pretty bad lately. You could get sick like this. If you get me sick, I won't be able to work and pay rent. Luke was momentarily stunned. I thought he'd be discouraged, but instead he flashed a goofy grin. Got it. I'll put something on right now. Something wasn't right. I couldn't figure out why he reacted like that. He quickly got dressed and came to sit across from me. He kept stealing glances at me while holding his phone. Curious, I pretended to browse my phone too and saw his latest comment to "My bro ain't too bright." Bro, it worked. She cared about me. She was worried I'd get sick, worried I'd infect her, and then we couldn't live together. Do you think maybe she likes me too? After 2 years of marriage, I still felt inferior for not being able to keep up with Luke's thought process. Who self-strategizes like this? Even "my bro ain't too bright" was speechless. No other reactions? Like blushing, shortness of breath, avoiding eye contact? No, but she was worried about me. Maybe she's more concerned about having a place to live. Wrong. She clearly cares about living together with me. Forget it. Try this next. Play weak, make up some childhood trauma that'll make her pity you. Pity is the start of love. But I had a great childhood. It's called exaggeration, man. Got it. Bro, you're a genius. Reading that gave me a bad feeling. No way. Please don't let it be that same story he's told 100 times. I glanced at Luke sitting across from me. The moment our eyes met, he looked away, trying to hide his guilty plan. After dinner, just as I was about to take a shower, Luke's phone suddenly rang. He glanced at me before answering. I recognized the voice on the other end. It was his cousin. Luke spoke to her perfunctorily. I'm fine, just a minor scratch. You don't need to worry about me. Someone's taking care of me. Why don't you believe me? Here, I'll let you talk to her. He handed the phone to me and softly pleaded, help me out. I don't want the family to worry. After a few seconds of hesitation, I took the phone. His cousin's voice came through. Sister-in-law, I didn't blow your cover. My cousin texted me saying he wants to chase you and asked me to call. Are you two doing some kind of cosplay? Gotta say, my cousin's brain hasn't exactly improved after the memory loss. Luke's cousin already knew about his amnesia and agreed to play along. Trying not to laugh, I met Luke's gaze and answered in a serious tone. No need to thank me. After all, he's my roommate. His cousin praised my acting skills and hung up. Luke took back the phone and sighed gloomily. I ignored him. He sighed again. I found it funny but pretended to look concerned. What's wrong? Luke finally seized the opportunity, his voice heavy with sadness. Talking to my cousin reminded me of something from first grade. Here we go again. I'd heard this story at least 800 times, but I still acted clueless. What happened? Seeing me fall for it, Luke almost couldn't suppress his grin. Nothing big. Back when my cousin was born, I wanted to go see her, but my parents scolded me, saying I was just a kid getting in the way. The more he talked, the more pitiful he looked. eventually lowering his head like an abandoned puppy. I remembered when I first heard this story. I had already started to like him. His vulnerable childhood story touched me deeply back then. For a long time after, I felt sorry for him until after we got married, and I subtly asked his mom about it. That's when I found out he got scolded because his teacher had told the class to bring their favorite thing to school. He sneakily took his newborn cousin to school. The parents panicked. The teacher was horrified. The classmates were stunned. And he was smug about it. When his cousin heard about this roleplay plan, she agreed without hesitation. Honestly, I suspect she did it for revenge. After finishing his story, Luke peeked at my reaction. Knowing the truth now, I mostly felt bad for my past self who naively believed him. Facing his expectant eyes, I replied coldly, "They went too easy on you. It's all in the past, right?" Luke's sad expression froze. Too easy on me? Yeah, think about it. Your cousin was just born. What if you accidentally dropped her or hurt her? And with all those people in the hospital, what if you lost her? Can you imagine? Luke was no longer sad, just shocked. So I shouldn't blame my parents for that? No kidding. Anyone would have gotten a spanking for sneaking a baby into school. After my shower, I saw Luke chatting again with "my bro ain't too bright." Instead of using private messages, they continued their conversation in the comments section, which a whole crowd of people, besides me, was now following. Bro, thank you so much. After hearing about my childhood trauma, she even helped ease my relationship with my parents. I think she kind of likes me. My bro ain't too bright clearly didn't believe him and asked for more details. After listening, he grew frustrated. You think she feels sorry for you? Of course, she was worried I might lose my cousin at the hospital. Isn't that sympathy? Fine, if you say so. Bro, this is the final move. This one's foolproof. There's a saying, 3 parts drunk make her cry. Pretending to be drunk always works to heat things up. But I don't drink. You don't need to actually drink. Just make sure you smell like alcohol. Got it. I got it too. So he was faking it back then. No wonder, in 3 years, I only saw him drink that one time. Sitting on the bed, I couldn't help but laugh. How could someone use the exact same tactic to chase me after losing his memory? About an hour later, I heard a heavy thud outside the door. Here we go. Oscar winner Luke was starting his performance. The thought of acting opposite him again almost made me burst out laughing. Luke was outside persistently making noise. I braced myself and opened the door to see a figure collapsing dramatically in the dim living room. Bottles and glasses clinked as they hit the ground. Under the moonlight streaming in, I walked over to him. On the floor was the 1,982 Lafitte. I had someone specially get for this Senia, very expensive prop that made my heart ache for a moment. I slowly approached Luke. He reeked of alcohol. A few buttons of his shirt were undone, exposing his collarbone in full view. I subconsciously swallowed. Damn it, I got hooked by his good looks again. Luke looked at me with a drunken smile, swaying as he slurred, I misunderstood them. He meant his parents. Surprisingly, he even managed to tie this into the ongoing drama. Years later, realizing he had wronged his parents, he turned to drinking and regret what a logical plot. Gotta admit, he really had skills. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been fooled so easily before. I reached out to steady his swaying body and scolded him. How could you drink? You just had an accident not long ago. Don't you care about yourself at all? Luke softly protested. I didn't drink that much. Not that much. This whole bottle is empty. And you call that not much? Luke saw my anger but smiled at me. You're worried about me. I blurted out without thinking. Of course I'm worried. After all, you're my husb. Hus? What? Boss. Luke looked a little disappointed and mumbled, but I don't want to be your boss. I raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want to be? In the moonlight, I could only see his eyes clear and serious. 3 years ago, when he pretended to be drunk, he had that same look. Back then, I thought he was really drunk, not noticing the unhidden affection in his gaze. The world was silent, only his heartbeat filled the air. Luke opened his mouth, but, without the courage of alcohol, still couldn't say he liked me. It annoyed me. I had confessed so easily back then, and now he was dragging it out like this. 3 years ago, I took advantage of his drunken state and kissed him. 3 years later, I did it again. I leaned in and pressed my lips against his. Luke's eyes were wide with shock, his whole body stiff and frozen. After the kiss, we stared into each other's eyes. "Luke, will you remember this tomorrow morning?" He nodded and shook his head, completely losing the ability to think. I smiled. "We'll talk about it tomorrow. For now, go to bed." Of course, he didn't sleep. Instead, he frantically tagged "my bro ain't too bright" to share his excitement. She kissed me. What does this mean? Does she like me? My bro ain't too bright didn't reply, but other users blew up the thread. Damn, even this works? Turns out it was a couple's little act all along. I thought this advice really worked. Haha, I'm not even mad. Strongly suspect the poster is just fishing for attention and ended up fooling himself. Luke fired back reply after reply. I watched with great interest before finally turning off my phone and going to sleep. The next morning, Luke came into the dining room with dark circles under his eyes, clearly having slept poorly. Meanwhile, I was well rested, calmly eating breakfast. He sat nervously across from me, waiting as I ate for 10 full minutes without saying a word. Unable to wait any longer, he spoke up. He cautiously began, Last night you drank too much. And then? That's all. The light in Luke's eyes instantly went out and he pouted, Aren't you going to take responsibility? What? Luke had completely forgotten he was supposed to be pretending to be drunk and spoke with full confidence. You kissed me last night, so you need to take responsibility. I smirked. You remember that clearly? But you drank quite a lot last night. Feeling guilty, Luke avoided my gaze and mumbled, I'm not like other people. I put down my sandwich and looked at him seriously. All right, our relationship isn't exactly simple. The light returned to Luke's eyes, his voice trembling with excitement. So what exactly is our relationship? I paused. Then, looking into his eager eyes, I slowly said, We're kiss buddies. Kiss buddies? Yeah, we kiss, but that's it. No strings attached. Luke's world collapsed, his voice shaking. Is this who I've become after 3 years? So, open? He seemed deeply shocked. I lowered my head sadly. If you can't accept it, I can always find someone else. Luke blurted out, No. Though he couldn't accept this open version of himself, he absolutely couldn't accept me finding someone else. He hesitated. So, what exactly do kiss buddies do? I calmly replied. Just kissing. Luke's mouth twitched. Only kissing? Yeah, just for fun. His brain completely crashed. I might need some time to process this. After saying that, he fled back to his room like he'd seen a ghost. Watching him leave, I smiled and opened my phone. As expected, he was already messaging, My bro ain't too bright. Bro, it's a mess! She says we're kiss buddies. Kiss buddies? Yeah, just kissing. Damn. Clearly, even my bro ain't too bright was stunned. A few seconds later, I received a WeChat from Carlos. Sis-in-law, you win. I admit defeat. He finally couldn't keep acting. My bro ain't too bright, don't say that. You've been Luke's wingman for 3 years. Carlos confessed everything. Sis-in-law, it was me who gave Luke those ideas back then. Since you and Luke are happily together now, please don't tell him I'm my bro ain't too bright. If he hadn't kept teaching Luke the same 3 moves, I wouldn't have figured out that my bro ain't too bright was Carlos, or that Carlos was the one who gave Luke bad advice 3 years ago. Honestly, Luke doesn't seem like someone who could come up with these tricks himself. He really isn't too bright when it comes to love. Ever since Luke found out we were kiss buddies, he started intentionally avoiding me, but couldn't help gravitating back. He was clearly torn thinking our relationship was far from pure, yet better than just being roommates. Coincidentally, my high school reunion was coming up, and we were supposed to bring a +1. I decided to give him one final push. This time, he had to confess. I cornered Luke before he could escape. Trapped, he didn't even dare meet my eyes. Luke, if you feel uncomfortable, I can move out. I'm not uncomfortable. Liar. His frown was as deep as the Mariana Trench. Then will you come with me to my class reunion? Huh? Me? Of course. A flash of excitement crossed his face, barely noticeable. What? What am I supposed to be? I smiled and winked at him. Of course, you'll be my husband. Once he got that title, Luke stopped avoiding me altogether. He looked like someone finally legitimized after a long secret affair. On the day of the reunion, he walked out wearing a custom suit. I almost blacked out and made him change immediately. He was reluctant. What if we run into your high school crush? I can't afford to lose. Half amused, half exasperated, I grabbed an outfit from his closet and handed it to him. Though unhappy, he obediently changed. After he finished, I looked him up and down and nodded. Now we look like a matching couple. Anyone can tell we're together. That finally cheered him up. By the time we arrived at the restaurant, most people were already there. Kristen stood up to greet me as we entered. I took Luke's hand and sat down beside her. She glanced at me, then at Luke, teasing. Your husband looks different from before. He did. He used to have a buzz cut, like a wolf dog. Now he had curly hair, more like a golden retriever. If I didn't look closely, I'd think you switched husbands. She meant no harm, but Luke's face immediately darkened. His eyes flickered as his mind raced, convinced that I must have brought someone else here before. Refusing to back down, he tried to salvage his pride. Yeah, she switched to someone even hotter. Larry thought he was joking and laughed without a care, completely oblivious to Luke's sinking mood. Honestly, it was kind of cute. I'd never seen him jealous of himself before. Luke strategically picked up his glass and stole a glance at me while drinking, clearly waiting for me to explain. I pretended not to notice and kept chatting happily with Kristen. After a few minutes, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Leaning close to my ear, he asked with a dangerous edge, "Did you have that kind of relationship with him too?" I played dumb. With who? My senior. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Who calls their love rival senior? What kind of relationship? He squeezed out 3 words, kiss buddies. I didn't answer, just smiled at him. He took that as silent confirmation, his voice sour enough to curdle milk. A friendship of 3 is just too crowded. He had completely misunderstood, so I decided to clarify after all. He was my husband. I crooked my finger at Luke. After a few seconds of hesitation, he leaned in. I whispered against his ear, my breath brushing his face. Luke, he and I are just regular friends. You're the only one I've ever kissed. After saying that, I turned my head and gently pecked his cheek. Luke froze, like someone had pressed pause, his face turning red at a visible speed. Once he processed what I'd done, he fumbled awkwardly, unable to hide the grin tugging at his lips. Sitting in the corner, secretly delighted, he seemed to be contemplating something. Eventually, his face grew determined like he'd made a big decision. I watched him curiously as he typed on his phone. As soon as he put down his phone, a message from Carlos popped up. "Sis-in-law, take a look." Attached was a screenshot of Luke's private message to "My bro ain't too bright," who was, in fact, Carlos. "Bro, I've decided to confess. She definitely likes me, just playing hard to get. She said I'm the only one she's ever kissed. This might be my only shot." After reading that, I was speechless for a long time. Honestly, Luke was lucky he ended up with me. Otherwise, with his terminal case of self-delusional romance brain, if someone sold him, he'd probably say, "She only sold me because she has me in her heart." All the way until the reunion ended, Luke stayed extremely tense. As we left the restaurant, the night breeze made me shiver involuntarily. Seeing this, Luke took off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. The familiar, clean scent of his clothes wrapped around me. Looking at him standing before me, I couldn't hold back anymore and threw myself into his arms, wrapping my hands around his waist, feeling his warmth. Not only did Luke not push me away, but he instinctively pulled me tighter. I knew this was muscle memory from all the times we'd hugged before. Maybe it was the moonlight, or maybe love had finally reached its breaking point. Holding me close, Luke softly said the words I had longed to hear. "Whether it's kiss buddies or pure friendship, I can't keep this up anymore. My heart races every time I see you. It's telling me I like you." Feeling the vibrations in his chest, I smiled and replied, "Then let's be together." Being with Luke felt pretty fresh, even though we'd technically been married for 2 years already. He had evolved into a self-restrained, ascetic husband, but now reverted back to his pre-marriage, easily flustered puppy self. Honestly, who wouldn't say I was living the dream? The best part was, even though Luke lost his memory, his cooking skills remained impeccable. He often marveled at his own cooking, wondering how he was so good at it despite having no memory of learning. He chalked it up to natural talent and almost signed up for a cooking competition. I persuaded him not to, saying I wanted him to cook just for me. Since then, he devoted himself even more to cooking. I ate so well that my stomach couldn't handle it. After a checkup, the doctor gave me 2 pieces of good news. 1, my stomach was fine. 2, I was pregnant. I stared at the test results, my mind racing as I counted the dates. Finally, I figured it must have happened the night before Luke's accident, about a month ago. I accepted the news quickly after all. It was part of our plan. What I forgot was, this was the plan before Luke lost his memory. Now, standing in the hospital hallway, Luke held the report like he'd been struck by lightning, completely frozen. Meeting my eyes, his whole body trembled. Whose child is this? Yours. Luke gave a bitter laugh. As far as I know, kissing doesn't lead to pregnancy. He paused for a few seconds. Or has science advanced so fast in 3 years that kissing can get someone pregnant? At that moment, I finally understood why people say love makes you as dumb as being drunk. How did I ever fall so hard for someone with this level of brain power? I felt like crying. Let's go home. I'll explain everything there. Back home, I pulled out our marriage certificate from the cabinet. Seeing the bright red booklet, Luke froze again, completely shattered. You're married? I'm the other woman? You're not. Not even the mistress? Am I the side piece? Seeing my increasingly dark expression, Luke shut his eyes. Surely I'm not the fifth wheel. His voice started to break, his eyes reddening, tears threatening to fall. Panicking, I rushed forward. Don't cry, honey. Luke stubbornly turned away. If I'm the side piece, can't I at least cry? Don't call me honey. You've got a real husband. I'm just the disgraceful side guy. I was losing my mind. How did he turn from the official spouse into the one with mistress syndrome? My head was spinning. I shoved the wedding photo in front of him. Read it. Luke, devastated, protested. Isn't this a bit cruel for someone in my position? Read. Like a soulless robot, Luke read word by word. Eh? 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 Suddenly, as if he'd hit the jackpot, he snatched the marriage certificate from my hands, glanced at the photo, then at the names, and burst with joy. 2 years ago? I was this amazing 2 years ago? Instantly reclaiming his rightful place, he wrapped his arms around me, burying his face into my neck. I'm so happy. Today's the best day ever. Not only do I have a wife, but now a child too. Luke cried, but this time they were tears of joy. Ever since I got pregnant, Luke practically stuck to me 24/7. His memory still hadn't returned. I consulted the doctor, who said most of the blood clots in his brain had dissipated. Only time would tell when his memory might come back. Luke didn't mind. He said it didn't matter. He loved me all the same. I thought about it and agreed. I stopped worrying until one morning he suddenly burst into the room from the living room, overjoyed. Honey, you're pregnant! I rolled my eyes. I'm almost due. The moment I said it, I realized something. Honey, your memory's back. Luke walked over, helping me up, and nodded. I immediately started apologizing, feeling guilty for everything I did while he was amnesiac. I'm sorry, honey. I shouldn't have lied to you while you lost your memory. It's not your fault. Luke shook his head and growled. Clearly, this was Carlos's bad idea. He's been messing with me for years, and he didn't even spare me when I lost my memory. Watching him angrily rant about Carlos, I quietly kept to myself the fact that Carlos was also my bro ain't too bright. But unexpectedly, Luke had gotten smarter. He even pretended to be an online stranger to mess with me. And what kind of ridiculous username is that? Well, there's no saving Carlos now. Suddenly, Luke added, but I've already punished him. How? I revoked his right to be our kid's godfather. Seeing how proud he looked, I silently took back my earlier thought that he had become smarter. After Luke regained his memory, nothing really changed. He still treated me like royalty. The marriage certificate was once again hanging proudly in the living room. Suddenly, I remembered what he once said during our wedding vows. Loving you has become the most ordinary thing in my life. Even though he forgot me, forgot everything about us, he never forgot to love me.